Hello everyone. I want to make this video to sort of just speak my mind. There's a lot that's been weighing on me, and I feel like I can't control whether people will watch, but I feel like I have a lot that I want to say and share, and sort of just talk about, I guess, how I'm feeling, what I've observed about the world and in my own life, and how I lead my life and how I respond to the world, and I guess some of my concerns and fears for the future. This isn't scripted, obviously. So I'm gonna try my best to be cohesive, but I hope you can bear with me. I guess to start, my name is Ivan. I was born in the USA, and my parents are both Mexican immigrants. But I was born and raised in the USA, and I guess I want to touch on sort of my hunch of what's happening and what's to come. It's not like a political thing. I'm not looking to be political, but just kind of share my experience and my perspective. I feel like over the past few months, as someone that's been traveling, for those that don't know, I'm currently in China, which for maybe Americans that might be kind of scary. Not scary, but confusing perhaps. But this isn't really about China, but more so my observations from traveling and living abroad, particularly in the last 2 years. I've been traveling semi full-time. 3 years ago, I began living in China and working here as an English teacher. And I feel like for most of my life, I've been a very observational, very analytical person. I feel like in the past, for a very long time, I doubted myself and I didn't really have confidence or trust in what I was feeling or what I was observing. I feel like from some social traumas and stuff, I sort of just invalidated myself. I internalized, conditioned myself to invalidate how I feel and stuff of this nature. And I feel like as time has gone on and as I've sort of worked on myself and being authentically myself, working at prioritizing my wellness, my well-being, my mental health, I feel like I've felt more confident and trusting in myself. And I feel like a few months ago I would feel very scared and unwilling to do this video, but I feel like in the past few months I've sort of had these concerns and envisioned a way that the world might unravel, that the US might unravel. And I feel like over the past month especially, I feel like I've been pretty spot on. And, I think in the past I would like kind of chop that up to being like, oh, like I'm being egotistical, like I'm just bragging. But I mean, I genuinely am concerned for myself, for my family, friends, people I care about, people I love, and just people in general, man. Humanity as a whole. And I guess what I'm referring to, um, I feel that since I started to travel, and I feel like many people who travel might be able to provide testimony as well, but in my observations, in my experience, I feel like the US has been in a decline. As I've spent time abroad and intermittently gone back and forth, I realized that I felt less and less belonging and welcomed and um, less, I guess, aligned maybe in the values of the US. And not just the values, but I feel like I've realized that I think I'm a very sensitive person, maybe what someone might call an empath. I feel things very strongly. I feel that I'm a very sensitive person, and I think that's a healthy thing. That's a different conversation that I'll touch on later, maybe. But I feel like I'm very sensitive to stress and to anxiety or people feeling unhappy or anxious or angry or sad, whatever it may be. And in the last few years where I've kind of gone back and forth time and time again, for one, I realized for myself I felt less and less fulfilled and well when I spent time in the US. I'll note that I think some portion of that has to do with my own social traumas and my own experience. I mean, obviously we are the accumulation of all our experiences, and I don't share all this to say that I'm like right and like only my perspective is the right answer, but I just want to share my experiences and hopefully start a discussion and see what if other people are observing or feeling the same way. But I feel like every time I've gone back to the US, there's been more stress. It's palpable. From the moment I land on the plane and get out, airports in general, I understand they're kind of shitty, stressful places. But it just felt, it just feels different. I feel like in many metrics, by many metrics, the climate, the atmosphere, the temperature in the US, really since like I think the start of COVID has just been, for me, palpably increasing and increasing. And I feel like I've observed it with discussions, political discussions. People are more fired up, more stressed, less open-minded, more antagonizing and like demonizing of the other side. And I mean, I'm not this isn't going to be political. I'm not going to focus too much on my political views, but more so just in general, I feel that on both ends things have just been getting more and more inflammatory, and the rhetoric just gets worse and worse and worse. And I will say, I feel like many people judge and demonize the people that they don't agree with. And that's a concerning thing for me. And I feel part of that is because I think people are feeling more and more anxious and uncertain and losing hope about the future. I feel like people, maybe not consciously, but I think, people can feel that. I think, there's a lot of things at play. I think one is social media is very negative, very toxic for our well-being. Algorithms, they cater to what we already believe. So I mean, I am probably biased too. I'll put that out there. But I feel like people are feeling more and more desperate, more and more angry, more and more exasperated and frustrated, and they're not seeing life improve. And I feel like this has really notched up in the last 5 years, and it's only been getting worse. And as of recording this, for those who follow news and the stock market, I mean, it's been one of the worst crashes since COVID. And I think this upcoming Monday is the April 4th or 5th is going to be, I mean, we'll see. But, I've been following, I follow markets. This is my observations from markets, from my own personal experience, from what I've kind of seen as I travel and as I talk to people and as I see things online and of this nature. And I think generally online is sort of a bubble. Things are a lot more inflammatory. There's no accountability. You won't get punched in the face for saying heinous things, but I feel like things are just getting worse and worse and worse. A lot of social media platforms are, I think, becoming more and more like an echo chamber, which I think it should be concerning wherever you stand. And, I think Twitter or X is very right-leaning, Reddit is very left-leaning, Instagram probably left-leaning. And I feel like it's only gotten more and more exacerbated over time. And, I feel like I'm 26. I was born in 1999. I feel like in my life, I never, I was very small when a lot of major, terrible things were going on in the world involving the US, the Iraq War and wars in the Middle East, 9/11. I mean, I was a baby. And so, I feel like growing up, we learned a lot about history and a lot of these horrible things. And I remember, I think it was 7th, 8th grade, or maybe 9th, 10th, I think American history or world history, learning about the world wars and the fall of the Berlin Wall, the fall of the Soviet Union. And I remember, this is probably 2010 or something, I remember we got to the last chapter in the history textbook, and then we finished the book. It was we left off on President Obama or something. I remember thinking holy shit, wow, 1991, I think that's the date. Berlin Wall fell, Soviet Union, I think also 1991. And I remember thinking holy shit, that's only 20 years ago. That is super recent. And I sort of had this moment where I was holy shit, in my life, I felt like there's been a distance around crisis, directly affecting me. And it sort of felt like history was this sort of distant thing, and I was wow, what a great time to be born and be alive. Not as much more war, much more peace, much more cooperation, and all these things. And I remember just kind of lingering on the end of that book and being like, holy shit, like history is being written now. Like the things that are happening now will be written and talked about and analyzed and discussed 5, 10, 20, 30, 100 years later. And it just felt interesting and fascinating, also just like really heavy and just crazy to think about. And I feel like the one major, apart from like COVID, but at that point I was an adult, the one major thing that really did affect me and that I think I was too young to really remember and really kind of be fully aware of what was going on. But there's been times in my life where I kind of think back and remember, or rather kind of dig out suppressed memories, and I realized like, holy shit, like 2008, 2009, when there was that whole recession, financial crisis. I remember it being a very scary and stressful time. In my own household, I remember my dad feeling a lot more stressed. um, and there was a lot more arguing between my parents. And, I remember, I don't think I've told my dad if he's watching. Maybe this would have been better to tell him off this video. But I mean, I'm an open book. But I remember there were several years where I felt like very resentful of my dad because I remember he was very stressed, and at that time he was saying like maybe it's time to go back to Mexico, maybe things are gonna go to shit. And there was just so much stress in the household, and I wasn't old enough to really know what was going on and fully understand and process, but it was just really unpleasant. And I guess what I'm getting at is it feels like something similar or much worse is coming. I feel like maybe someone who watches this in a week even might already be like, oh yeah, that's obvious. um, but I'm not so sure. I mean, as I've been here in China the last few months, I talk to friends, I talk to family, I keep up with kind of what's going on in the U.S. and kind of what the day-to-day like hearsay is. And it seems like most people, I think in general in the U.S. don't really follow um, the news, or aren't actively like trading or following like stock market, crypto market, equities, stuff like that. And so, I feel like for the past month is when I really started feeling concerned. Um, One, because I mean, equities, stock markets were reaching an all-time high. Um, just an absurd bull run, absurd valuations that were as high as peaks comparative to the peaks of like other major crashes like dot-com bubble, 2008, Great Depression, stuff like that. And so I was like, I mean, maybe it could happen, but I mean, there's no way, right? Like that would be crazy. Like those things happen so rarely. The world is so different now, like surely not. And I feel like honestly, I think what really changed for me was Luigi Mangione, the healthcare CEO assassination. And I feel like that was kind of a big wake up call for me. That was when I got really interested. I was really fascinated by the case, regardless of where you stand on it. I think it was very fascinating and very just very new, just unseen, unprecedented, something of that nature. And I feel like it sort of embodies the frustration and the stress that I've sort of been feeling and observing, and I think maybe many others as well, where I feel like in the US, more and more people are just feeling more and more desperate, more and more stressed, not seeing any hope. And in my opinion, honestly, I feel like that's why there was so much appeal to Trump. I feel like, as someone from California, from Los Angeles, I feel like, mm, in general, I feel like many people, we don't really understand or know what life is like for others in other parts of the country. And I think it's a very different experience if you're growing up in like a rural town versus like a city. And I think that's where a lot of misunderstanding and um, yeah, misunderstanding comes from. And I feel like, I feel like Trump, personally, I feel like Trump is the result of many people feeling and knowing that we need change and just feeling more and more desperate that like someone brings it. I think most people agree that, the political situation in the US, the government has kind of just been on the decline. And I think it's not even just the US. I mean, I've seen videos about these kind of things in other places, in the UK, Australia. And honestly, I feel like it's not unique to the US. I think it's a global wave, a global phenomenon. And I feel like things are radically changing. And I feel like the cracks are showing. I feel like I've felt that the cracks have started to show. And as time has gone on, over the past couple months, I feel more and more affirmed. And, that's not like, that's not something I want to be right about. Like, I don't want, I mean, I don't want people to suffer and go bankrupt and starve and, you know, I remember the first recession, 2008, was a horrible time. And, I mean, my family got through, but I'm sure many, many people were homeless, maybe many committed suicide, or other things. And so, especially being someone that's very sensitive to my environment, I feel like, I mean, that would be extremely stressful. And I guess the scary part, the concerning part, is that I feel like I'm more and more certain. And it's not even just my observations anymore. I've been following markets, I've been following analysts and traders and, I mean, people on YouTube, just, I don't know, I guess a broad range of sentiment and analysis and data. And, you know, I feel like all the cracks are showing. And I feel like this week has been that big breaking point, turning point. I'm not sure how many people realize it because I know many people aren't really keeping up with like stocks or politics and news. But to me, I mean, stock market's lost like 15-20% of value. And I mean, judging by history from previous crashes, I mean, it can get so much worse. Obviously, no one truly knows how bad it can get. But I have the sense that things can get pretty bad. And it's scary because I feel like it can get bad in a way that I've never known, that my generation has never known. Something just completely unseen before, unlived, unexperienced. And I feel like in general, the US is sort of a bubble in the sense that we're very far removed from much of the world. We have Canada to our north, not much goes on there. We have Mexico to the south, but I feel like the things that are going on elsewhere in the world have a pretty minimal impact on the US. Generally, I mean, yeah. And so I feel like, if I'm being honest, I feel like there's a lot of complacency and comfort and sort of like ignorance is bliss in the US. And I mean, not to say that I'm like holier than thou. I mean, that's something I noticed about myself first and foremost, and something I really didn't like, and something I really wanted to change. Um, and that's part of why I created a YouTube channel and started my journey there, and have made some videos like this in the past. Um, but I feel like that's something I don't want to do anymore. I'm tired of complacency. I want to be the highest version of myself. I want to be true and authentic to myself and what I value. I want to have integrity and be honest and compassionate and curious, understanding, all these things. I'll touch on that a little more later, but I guess what I'm getting at is I feel like things are really changing and the cracks have been showing. I've been right. Over the weeks, I remember thinking like, oh, for like, I felt that there would be more anti, like billionaire or rich, like more class divide. The political divide's only been growing, um, and excuse me, I feel like politically it felt like there was posturing for sort of breaking or um, dismantling ties with other countries. I think first, for me, like the whole rhetoric around annexing Canada or Greenland, Panama, like all those things coming from Trump, were sort of some warning signs to me. And I feel like in the US, I feel like a lot of us underestimate or don't truly understand what it's like to be from another country. And I've sort of felt, and I still believe, that there's a massive misjudgment, a massive um, underestimate of how the world views the United States of America and Americans, and the reputation of the US and Americans in other countries. The irony being that in China, where I'm at, most people actually have a lot of respect and reverence for the US. But that's another topic. But I felt that with the whole Canada situation, along with like the Tesla stuff, that was where a lot of what I felt was might happen came to fruition. Um, but I feel like been and is a massive underestimate of like how countries will respond. I mean, to threaten for the leader of the free world to threaten another country, I mean, that's not to be taken lightly. Like a lot of people, I feel like don't really think much of it, or it's like, he's just joking, blah blah blah. But there's a big difference between the experience of another person and our intention, or what we think the impact of our words is having. And I feel like this is exactly the case going on in the US, where I feel like um, the things that are happening and have been happening this year so far have very real and true ramifications. It takes a very long time to build trust and a very short time to shatter it. And I feel like I often feel that, I mean, you can kind of think of governments as like the embodiment of like, I don't know, human nature. I mean, which makes sense. I mean, it's basically just comprised of a lot of individual humans. But I've always found it kind of fascinating and analyzing how, I mean, every country you can kind of think of as just being like a human, just like one individual with their own personality, their own style, their own humor, their own, I don't know, feistiness, beliefs, values. Um, and of course, like one person, it's very hard to represent the diversity of a whole country. whether that's the US or any country at all. And, you know, I lost my train of thought. um, yeah, I feel like, you know, with Canada, there's been a lot of ramifications, particularly at the border towns. I've been following a lot of that. Just, I mean, plummets to like COVID level lows of tourism. And same with in Florida, a lot of Canadians, from what I understand, go to Florida. Snowbirds, I think they call them. And there's just been a huge drop in tourism, and there's a huge boycott movement for U.S. goods. A lot of growing anti-U.S. sentiment in the EU, from I feel like basically that whole Zelensky, Ukraine fallout, embarrassment in the White House, just crazy, ridiculous stuff. And you know, whether it's the right move or not, I won't really debate that, but personally, I feel that these actions have very true ramifications, and I think that it's being highly underestimated. I think in the EU, there's, I mean, really all over the world, I expect growing anti-US sentiment, and I feel like at this point, the US, I mean, actually, maybe for many points in history, has kind of been a bully. And I guess, like, I feel like as an immigrant, I feel more in tune with that perspective, what it feels like to be a minority. And that's something that really affected me, and I was very sensitive to growing up, and always felt both fascinated and also isolated about kind of being part of two worlds, you know, American and Mexican, but feeling like I didn't quite belong in either. And so that's always been something very fascinating to me. And I guess, you know, I feel like, yeah, I feel like things are gonna get ugly. I feel like a recession is basically guaranteed. I feel like with AI, even, I mean, just everything has been just accumulating into this chaos moment. AI replacing humans, rising geopolitical tensions, boycotts, anti-US sentiment, um, people feeling more and more stress, inflation. I think just personally in how we live our lives, more people feeling unfulfilled, less happy, spending more time sucked into video games or pornography or social media, entertainment. Just, it's so easy to distract ourselves and just let life slip by. And, you know, that's part of why, I mean, actually, that's the crux, that's the reason why I'm making this video. Because I feel very concerned. And, you know, I'm a big advocate of therapy. Therapy has really helped me. Shout out my therapist. um, and, you know, I, with my therapist, developed basically my purpose for my life and for my channel, and I guess I'll share that, which is I want to inspire people to be more curious, connected, and understanding with themselves, each other, and the world around them, so that they may live a more authentic and fulfilling life, be unafraid to dream, and be unrelenting in the pursuits of their dreams. And so that's really at the core of who I want to be and why this channel exists and what I want to do on this channel. And I've tried that in a lot of different ways. That's its own journey, that's its own thing, but I guess I'll transition into the second topic I guess I want to touch on, or the second side of this coin, which is, I think the first is I truly believe that things are gonna get ugly. I wish I was wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I honestly do feel that that's the case. And I think for a long time I felt that because other people didn't feel that I was wrong. But as I've sort of undone and deconditioned myself from past shackles and social traumas and stuff, and gained more trust and confidence in myself, I feel like I mean, I don't mean it like as an ego thing, but I do feel that I am often right about my observations and what I feel. And I guess that's like kind of scary and kind of isolating. And I feel like I haven't really talked to anyone apart from a few friends and my girlfriend and my parents. I mean, I've talked about this as things have happened like every couple weeks. But I think things have really, I feel like, finally been confirmed. And I think, I don't know, it feels like a turning point. It feels like the floodgates have opened and things are only going to get worse and uglier. And I feel like a lot of people just aren't ready or aren't even really aware or following very closely. And the scary part is I feel like a lot of people maybe are aware, but don't really feel like there's anything they can do to change things or to respond, to protect themselves and their family, their loved ones. And so I guess that's sort of what I want to touch on now, is sort of how I've been living my life over the past year particularly, and how I've sort of radically changed how I view life and my purpose and I guess my values, because I feel like part of what makes me feel less aligned in the US is that I feel that in general, like what the US values societally, fundamentally, I feel like I disagree with it. And what I'm referring to is I feel like, at least when I was growing up, my generation, generally the ideas, I think, in American society are, all about the individual, which, in a lot of ways I like. There's a lot of things I really love about the U.S. and our Constitution and what we're supposed to stand for. In principle, I think in practice there's a lot of things that could use some work. But, in a societal level, I feel like so much of the emphasis is on, making money, reputation. We're told, I mean, really things that I feel like the things we are conditioned to chase in the US are not just contrary, but literal, like opposite end of the spectrum of what will actually fulfill us and make us happy and provide us wellness and good health, right? And I mean, I could probably talk on that for a very long time. Maybe I will. We'll see where this goes. But, we're told make more money, get a better job, work at that job for a very, very long time, work your way up, and just sort of constantly moving the goalposts of how to be happy. I think there's really even just a lack of understanding of what it means to be happy in the US. I feel that generally the US is very pleasure based. And, I feel that ironically, the very things that we're incentivized and conditioned to chase are things that will never bring lasting happiness. in the sense of you'll never. It's the arrival fallacy, which is any time that you think, oh, okay, once I have X, Y, and Z, then I'll be happy. Anytime you think that, it will never make you happy. Maybe pleasured, maybe some joy for a short time, but it will never last. So, I mean, what I'm talking about is consuming things, buying things. I think we're very consumeristic, very materialistic in the US. And the ironic part, and I think maybe travelers can attest to this, as someone that's spent a lot of time in Mexico and in China and Thailand primarily, um, something I've observed and noticed is that, ironically, many people in the US who have so much, they have more than most can dream of, are very unhappy, very unfulfilled, very miserable at times. While in many countries where people have really low standards of living compared to the US, people are so much more joyful and full of life and content. And I don't know, I mean, since I was a kid, I've sort of observed this, and I feel like as I've traveled, I've affirmed it more and more. And I don't know, it seemed obvious to me, but I never really had the trust in myself or the strength to speak my truth. And now I feel like I'm at a point where I have to, like, I need to. It can help someone. It helps myself, even if no one watches this, like, it helps me to do this and to affirm this for myself. And I'm hoping someone's there on the other side of this camera. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's it's something that somewhat gives me shame, honestly, sometimes to be American, is that I feel like, we're or the richest, most powerful countries in the world, and yet sometimes we have so little to show for it. It feels, whether that's our healthcare system, our political system. And I'm not just trying to like bash the US. China has a lot of problems too. Any country has its problems. And I think generally, yeah, I mean, I just feel, I don't know, it just feels wrong that some people have so much in the US while so much of the world is in poverty and just suffering. And I approach it with compassion for myself and for other people. I think most people are good people, and that's something I have learned and affirmed through traveling, and hope to continue to affirm through traveling and to show people through my blogs and my videos and my channel. And so, I think most people are just trying to live their life, just simply just trying to live their life in as best a comfortable way as they can. And I don't think people mean harm for the most part, or are hateful at heart. I feel personally that most people who are hateful or resentful, typically, I guess this is more from a psychological standpoint, it's the result of them having experienced something very painful, very hurtful to them, or they feel like it was unfair, and maybe it was unfair. And I try to be very compassionate and understanding with myself and with others, and to try and understand others. And I think that's a very hard thing to do in this day and age. We all want to be understood, but few of us want to do the understanding. And so that's something where I feel like I want to lead by example and try my best. And I hope that you guys can share your own perspectives and thoughts, and we can have a discussion and understand each other better as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess um, what I want to say is, I care about people. I care about the world. I don't know. It feels like that's a rare thing, maybe these days. Um, and I mean, I don't want to see suffering and destruction. And so I want to share sort of how I've sort of changed my approach to my life in particularly the past year, and the results and how it's helped me feel a lot more fulfilled and feel a lot more well, a lot more healthy, a lot more authentically myself. Um, and I've always been a very introspective and curious person, and some of it has kind of been lifelong, particularly since being a young adult. Like keeping up with, like, I don't know, this interesting psychology. I really like, for example, like healthygamer.gg. Dr. K has really helped me out a lot. A lot of mental health resources and um, explanations and stuff like that. Therapy has really helped me a lot. Super, super helpful. Um, Reading some books, particularly, well, a lot of books, have been very helpful. Um, but meditating as well, mindfulness, meditation. And I guess that's kind of all of those things have been at the core of how I've led my life as of recent. Um, for the past year, it's funny because by American standards, even by Chinese standards, or by many standards in the world, the way I've led my life, like, I'm a failure. Like, societally, I would probably be a bum and like a huge failure. And part of why I feel so strongly about what I do and what I'm sharing is because even if the majority of people don't agree and don't feel the way I do, or think the way I do, I think I feel that, I'm a very different, that sounds weird, but like I felt most of my life very different and very isolated from most people. And I feel like I sort of masked my true self for a long time. And this was a realization I had about a year ago. To keep things short, a very close friend of mine passed, and it was very tragic, very hard. First loss of my life. I grieved a lot. And I realized that a huge regret in her life was that she did not live life on her own terms. And this is a very common regret that people say on their deathbeds. There's studies and stuff about it, um, surveys. And, it was really a wake up call for me. Around that time, that was when I started traveling a lot more full time, or just spending time abroad in Thailand, in China with my girlfriend and her family. And because it was so hard, I spent so much time just doing the bare minimum, just existing, eating my meals, going for walks, sitting on rocks, reflecting on life, processing my emotions, grieving, just trying to prioritize my wellness and get by. And in a strange way, although maybe not so strange, because I believe that our worst, most harmful, hurtful, painful experiences are what shape us. It's what makes us who we are. And I feel like a lot of people, especially in today's world where it's so easy to distract ourselves. A lot of our brains are cooked or fried from dopaminergic systems are just off the rails. I mean, it's so easy to hide and escape and run away from ourselves, from our problems, from spending time with ourselves, our thoughts. And I think oftentimes people might think that they have like a defect, but it's completely normal. I think a lot of people, in my opinion, in my observations, including with myself, I mean, that's where I discover a lot of what I believe now is in introspecting and analyzing myself and trying to understand the human mind and the human experience. And I realized I for many years ran away from myself, mostly through video games, COVID era, just wasting my time and wasting my life, negative influences from a toxic friend group. And I mean, you know, and I think it's easy to want to blame others or someone else, but ultimately we're responsible for our own lives, and no one can force us to change. We have to want to change. We have to be ready to change. One of my favorite quotes from a really nice book I've been reading called Awakening Joy by James Baraz, I think. There's a quote in that book where basically there's someone who clearly doesn't want to change and they don't really realize it, but I think in the book one of the meditation teachers made this comment that really struck with me, which was something along the lines of, it seems that your desire to stay the same is greater than the desire to change. When you're ready to change, you will. And I think that's also in line with the audiobook. I know I'm plugging a lot of things, but they have been really helpful for me. Audiobook by Mel Robbins called Let Them Theory. Highly recommend. But basically, I mean, we don't change until we want to, until we're ready to. And oftentimes it takes, maybe not oftentimes, maybe always, at some point, at some points it takes suffering, it takes pain, it takes hitting a rock bottom to be ready to change, to say, enough is enough, this is not working, what I've been doing is not working, this doesn't feel right, this feels wrong, something needs to change. And in my life, that big moment was when I chose to come to China to teach English 3 years ago. I didn't quite know what I wanted, I didn't quite know what was right, but I knew what I was living was wrong. It felt wrong. I was wasting my life away, and I was wasting time on video games, and I wasn't doing any of those big dreams or things I wanted to do. I was just complacent, and all my friends at the time I felt were complacent. And I feel like ultimately we have to decide that enough is enough, and that was the starting point. The big catalyst was a year ago when my friend passed away. But that's sort of been the journey I've been on for the past few years, and just trying to understand myself, trying to heal my traumas, to focus on my wellness, on joy. 3 years ago I felt extremely pessimistic and cynical and disconnected and just resentful of the world, and I mean, I was just a completely different person from who I am now. And a lot of that has been on just, even if you don't know what's right, we can often, if we really sit with ourselves and dig deep, we can feel what's wrong. And for me, I could feel, if I was truly honest with myself, and eventually I was, because we can bullshit ourselves so long, man. I feel like so many of us bullshit ourselves for so long, and I think for such a long time I felt afraid to sort of call people out on that in a compassionate, caring way. But ultimately, like I said, if someone's not ready to change, they won't. And even for myself, there were so many times where someone tried to steer me in the right direction and I just didn't listen. I was stubborn. I didn't want to listen. I wasn't ready to listen. And so it really takes having those conversations with yourself. There's a quote by, I think, David Goggins, where he says, the most important conversations we'll ever have are with ourselves. Something like that. And I think that's extremely true, 100% true. And I have been very introspective for a long time. And, in the last year especially, I've made it a very strong intention to focus on being introspective, to focus on sitting with myself, meditating, reflecting, contemplating, feeling things out. I think is a huge one. I feel like a lot of people, we think there's something wrong with us if we have negative thoughts, if we have negative feelings, but that's completely normal. We're supposed to feel right. It's healthy to feel right, a wide range of emotions. And, I feel like that's something that societally, I don't know how things are these days, but I feel like when I was growing up in the US, and probably many parts of the world, I mean, it's not a very masculine thing to do, to cry and to feel out your emotions and all these things. But honestly, it's been, I mean, fuck what, excuse my language, but fuck what people think, man. Like, I've cried so much. I'll be straight honest with you. Past couple of days, I've had breakdowns. We've had a lot of struggles in my relationship, and I've cried a fuck ton. It's necessary, I would say. It's super healthy. And I'm a crybaby, man. Oh my god. And I love it. I'll be honest, man. Like, it's who I am. I'm very sensitive. It's true. I feel things very deeply. I see things very deeply. Maybe that's obvious. Maybe it's not. But that's just who I am. And I feel like many people could benefit from radically changing their relationship with themselves. And that's what's worked for me. I'm not saying that is what's going to help you. Everyone's life, everyone's experiences, everyone's dispositions are completely different. I just want to offer my story and my perspective and talk about what's helped me and what's worked for me. And that has really worked for me. Basically, in the last year, I've hardly worked. I said earlier, I don't think I explained, but by American standards, I've been a complete failure this year. I've hardly worked. I probably made less than 20,000, surely less than 20,000 in 2024, below poverty line maybe. I worked like 4 or 5 months out of the year. Otherwise, I was traveling or I was just existing, enjoying, allowing myself again to enjoy life and appreciate what I have. I spoke on the US constantly, arrival fallacy, I feel like, is fundamentally a part of a lot of what we pursue in the US. And I think we often don't appreciate what we have. We're always looking for what's next, for what is to come, for what's out there. And that might sound a bit weird because I love traveling. I love what travel can bring. And that's one of the things I really am looking to focus on with my channel, is the element of the interplay between the external and the internal. I feel that traveling can be super, super healing for yourself, for your soul, whatever you want to call it. And that's certainly been the case for me. And so much so that I guess slowly, it's been a roller coaster, but if you're really in tune with yourself, we have gut feelings or visions about what feels right to us. And until you're ready to really start pursuing that, you can constantly push it away and just suppress your dreams, your desires, your wants, convince ourselves that what we have is what we want. And I feel like a lot of people refuse to dream or haven't dreamed for so long they don't even know what it's like to dream. And I feel like a lot of us, it's emotional at heart, it's not intellectual, but I think a lot of us emotionally, it's very scary, it's very hard to dream and pursue our dreams and be honest and share people that we have dreams and all these things. I feel like it's a vulnerable thing, but I truly believe in radical honesty and radical vulnerability. And I wouldn't have been able to realize that if I didn't create the environment to really dig deep and rediscover myself and prioritize being myself again, choosing who I want to be, choosing a life that feels right to me. And there's so much noise. Even this video, honestly, can be considered noise. On social media, anyone that's telling you they can fix your life is probably lying. There's so many incentives. People trying to sell you a course or advertisements or whatever. I'm not monetized. I don't have sponsorships. China is not sponsoring me. US is definitely not sponsoring me. And so, I hope that it shows that I genuinely am coming from a place of goodwill, good intention, and that's something I've really been working on. Just being my true self, prioritizing integrity and honesty and my wellness, my happiness. And and so, for the past year, that's basically been what I've been doing. I haven't gotten like part-time or full-time jobs. I just kind of do gig work whenever I go back to the US for a month or two. And I feel like the big leap of faith, my channel's called A Stepping Stone because I feel like you never really know where you're going to end up. You have a vision, and all you can do is trust in it and trust in the journey and take small steps. And as you go, it'll become clearer and clearer. It won't be a straight line. There's been so many times where I quit. I start and then I do it for a bit and then I quit. My YouTube channel, even just if you look at the upload history, it kind of shows the phenomenon. And so the clarity comes slowly. It's not straight. It's not a straight line. You're gonna take some steps forward, take some steps back. But in the long run, if you have a reason to do it, to pursue what you truly want, if you're tired of living a life that's unfulfilling and that just is the same thing every day, and you've always had dreams about whatever it is, we all have different dreams, but I've realized for myself what feels right to me is giving up on, I in high school I was valedictorian. I graduated the top public university in the world, UC Berkeley. By many definitions, I'm a complete failure right now. But it took so much time to trust myself and decondition myself from expectations of who I am and who I ought to be. And I think that's part of why traveling is so refreshing and healing and gives such a great perspective, is that when you travel, there's no expectation of who you are. Maybe from some people, for maybe they can guess where you're from or they have ideas about the country you're from, but it's such a great opportunity to revamp, completely redefine who you are. And that's what I've done. That's what I've been doing. That's what I intend to keep doing. I sadly, it's fine. I'm coming in a few days' time. I'll be coming back to the U.S. because I'm out of money and I gotta be able to survive. It's not, we still need money. I'm not completely against money, but I have reached a point where my focus is trying to be content with less and less consume less, spend less money, appreciate what I already have rather than continuously looking for what I don't. And just prioritizing what truly matters. And to me, what matters in life is, I mean, what's the point in life? Or maybe some people might feel differently, but for me, my way of seeing it is, what's the point in being alive if we're not enjoying it? We only live once, we only have one chance. And I feel like for me, this has been an experiment that I've gone at alone. I don't feel like anyone else really understands me or asks really a whole lot. Um, but it's been very successful, not in societal terms, but at an individual level. I feel very proud of myself and very satisfied and content with the path I'm on and the path I've chosen, which is basically to pursue my YouTube channel, pursue my dreams, try and help people with that mission statement of mine, my why statement that I mentioned, and focus on the things that actually matter. And to me, what matters is family, friends, loved ones, spending time with them, spending time with ourselves more than anyone. The only person we're born with and die with is ourselves. And healing our relationship with self, being our authentic selves, being our best self. And for me, that's been prioritizing my mental health, prioritizing my wellness, my joy, my character, focusing on my character. That's sort of the way I see it. I feel like my full-time job, it doesn't make me money yet, maybe someday, but my full-time job is to enjoy life and be my most authentic self. That's the way I see it. Every video I make is a stepping stone to being more curious, connected, understanding with myself, with other people, with the world. Hopefully inspire people, if not, inspire myself. And that's enough. That's a lot, you know? And so, yeah, I guess to tie it all together, the world is cooked. The world is going to shit. And I think what a lot of societies prioritize is not going to work for much longer, is my sense. Especially with AI, I feel like things will radically change soon. And I feel like we all need to respond accordingly. We all need to radically redefine what it means to be human, what it means to live life, and what we pursue, what we value. And for me, my lifestyle has worked very well for me, and I'm very satisfied and proud of it. And I feel like it can help a lot of people, especially in the coming months, years. I don't know how bad it'll get, but I think a lot of us can benefit, and the world can be such a much better place if we become more curious, connected, and understanding with ourselves, each other, and the world. And if we pursue our dreams, man. Maybe it's maybe it's optimistic, maybe it's not realistic. Whatever it may be, people are free to think what they want. Let them think what they want. Let me do what feels right for me. I can't satisfy everyone. Not everyone's gonna agree. I don't know if many people will watch this, but this is my truth, man. And that's all that matters. That's all I have control over, ultimately. And yeah, I mean, I wanted to get that off my chest and talk about all those things and hopefully inspire others to do something similar, or maybe have some new food for thought. Maybe radically change their life in a way that is authentic to themselves, that feels like success to themselves, to what they value, to what matters to them, that would be pretty freaking awesome. And so yeah, when I'm out here, I mean, past couple months I've made no money apart from some red packets for Chinese New Year. um, and yet I've never been more. It's not. I mean, it hasn't been easy. The part of diving deep and introspecting and working through all that mud is that there's so much shit in our minds, man. So much suppressed emotion and traumas and all these things. But it's worth it. There's a concept called "the body keeps the score." It's also a book that I want to read soon. I haven't read it yet, but this idea that, generally, to my understanding, um, if we don't if we don't process and expunge all these negative emotions and stuff in our system, it stays with us, it affects us, not just mentally, but it manifests in physical form. Higher heart rates, more stress, more anxiety, stuff like that. I'm no expert on this, but what I'm trying to say is, just anecdotally, in my own experience, that's been very true, very real. I feel like as I've done more inner work and processing, I feel so much more lighthearted, and it's the accumulation of a lot of things, you know, reading, working on my relationships, working on myself, pursuing my dreams, making space and time for joy, watching YouTube, focusing on financial well-being, all these things, right? Meditating. And so everyone's formula will be different. Everyone's path and response will be a bit different, but I feel like there's more and more of a need in this world for these things, for a radical adaptation, a radical change. And in my own life, this has been my radical change, and it's worked very well for me. And I hope that it maybe can help you as well. So, yeah. If this is the first time you ever watched my video, welcome. Please like and subscribe. I have some vlogs I filmed that are aligned with everything I've said, but more so the traveling, introspection type experience. But excited to work on those and get those out. But I just felt I needed to say all this, and it aligns with my why, so why not do it? I think sometimes I worry about whether people will watch, whether it fits my channel, my vlogs, all these things, but the content, the form that things take is secondary. Primary is my purpose, my why, which I'll leave off on that one more time, which is I want to inspire people to be more curious, connected, and understanding with themselves, each other, and the world around them. To inspire them to live a more authentic and fulfilling life, to be unafraid to dream, and to be unrelenting in the pursuit of their dreams. And that's my mission. That's what I'm doing for myself first and foremost, and in the hopes that it helps you guys too. So if that sounds cool, which if you've gone to this point, it probably does sound pretty freaking cool. Then yeah, hope to see you around. Welcome. Drop a comment. Love to hear what you guys think. And yeah, let's survive the world, and not just survive, let's thrive. Let's thrive. That's about it. I'll leave it at 1:15. Peace. See you later.